This podcast is in collaboration with the University of New Haven's Welcome Project. 1 in 6,000. Hello everyone. Today we are here with Sanduni Muhandaramge, who is a senior at the University of New Haven studying national security with a concentration in intelligence analysis and as well a minor in political science. Hello, Sanduni.
Ayubowan, mage nama Sanduni. Hello, my name is Sanduni. Thank you so much for that introduction, Eric.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit more about your time here at the university.
Sure. So I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, but I like to say that my hometown is in Sri Lanka because I spent 4 years of my childhood growing up there. And over my time at the university, I've been an orientation leader, I've been a diversity peer educator, I've been a resident assistant, and I now work at the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. So I've done a lot on this campus and have really found this place to become my home away from home.
So you were born in Sri Lanka, or you were born in Los Angeles?
So I was born in Los Angeles, but at 4 years old, my dad, he is Sri Lankan, and he decided that he wanted me to get a feel for his culture and his customs. So at 4 years old, I moved to Sri Lanka, and I spent basically preschool till 4th grade there.
Gotcha.
And it was very different from America, as you might imagine. So Sri Lanka is this beautiful place. If you ever get a chance to visit or have a spot of vacation in mind, I always recommend Sri Lanka. And I'm really grateful for my dad and sharing his culture because a lot of our customs are very different. So for example, if we have a guest coming over, they're not supposed to leave without you offering tea. And that's an unsaid rule, yeah. So the host will make tea for the guest, and you cannot leave until you have tea. It's very disrespectful.
So say the host forgot to offer tea, you'd have to hang around until they did?
Actually, it'd be really funny because we have kind of like a tea time. So Sri Lanka is very heavily influenced by British kind of colonization that era. So schooling in Sri Lanka was different. It was a British education system. So when you would come visit and it would reach a certain time, if the host did not give you tea, you'd probably say, "Oh, don't you think it's maybe time for tea?" Or you would say, "I think it's close to tea time, don't you think?" So you would like kind of politely bring up tea time.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because it's the polite thing to do, or because everyone enjoys drinking tea? And
it's almost like grabbing a coffee here in America, where it's like, "Oh, let's hang out, let's grab a bite to eat." But it's more of a home feel because you come there and you have a cup of tea, you catch up, you talk a little bit about your life, exchange stories in the neighborhood with each other. So I would say in the closest metaphor to our university, it's almost as if you're catching up with someone who you haven't seen before in Jasmine's.
Ah.
Yeah.
Very nice. So you said it was kind of heavily like British from the colonization and stuff like that. So did that carry over into like the schooling that you took while you were there?
100%. So I moved back to America right before my 9th birthday. And in Sri Lanka, I didn't realize that we did not necessarily care about age. So when I came to America, a lot of my teachers said that I was very young to be starting 5th grade. And they said that I didn't meet the age cutoff, which number one was very weird. That to me was strange because in Sri Lanka, it doesn't matter what your age is. If you're capable of keeping up with the coursework, it wouldn't matter. Right. So I actually had to retake 4th grade. So that was really interesting. I actually would have already been graduated. A lot of my friends in Sri Lanka now have moved on postgraduate studies. But that being the first major difference. The second one is that I used to spell things out with the OU. So like favorite, flavor, like those words would be an OU. And when I would submit written essays, my teacher would give them back to me. And she'd be like, "You spelled this wrong." And I'd be like, "What do you mean?" So that's the second difference. And the third difference is that in Sri Lanka, kind of like how you would refer to a professor as like doctor or mister or stuff like that, we would have to call a teacher by their last name followed by sir or ma'am. So I would have to say, this was actually my teacher, my kindergarten teacher, I would have to say, "Oh, Miss Yamuna, ma'am." And that's how I would have to regard her every single time.
Interesting. So while you were there, what was kind of like the cultural climate or the global
Yeah.
climate at the time.
It's interesting you say that. So when I grew up, Sri Lanka was actually still in a civil war. So this is where we had terrorists come into like our country seeking land. And my father grew up a lot of his life, his childhood life, in that very dangerous climate. But I think the most notable experience about that was the mall that I would frequent all the time actually got bombed and completely destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah, completely destroyed. And it was very scary because after school, like a lot of my friends would go there. Like it felt almost surreal because I was 6 years old, 7 years old. I didn't really know what any of that meant, except for the fact that, oh my God, this big building kind of like went to the ground and what's a bomb, you know?
Yeah.
So my dad really sheltered me. And growing up, I was never really adventurous because of those experiences, but there was certainly a lot of adventure to be had in Sri Lanka apart from that.
So you talked a little bit earlier about like your transition at first to the United States, but obviously after like high school and stuff, how has kind of being a first generation college student affected your life?
I'm glad you asked that. I am really proud to say that I'm a first generation student, and for those who have never heard that term before, it's a first generation student is someone who is the first in their family to go to college. And my parents never had a college education, and they both immigrated to the United States. So they had no idea about the American education system, applying what the hell's a FAFSA, you know? So being a first generation college student has its very unique challenges, especially when you have younger siblings, because you are setting the stage for your family. And so it's not just your future that you're afraid of, and it's not just your failures that you're afraid of. It's about failing your younger siblings. It's about failing your parents if you don't make it. And so whenever I step into a classroom or whenever I take up an opportunity, kind of like this, just talking to you, I like to share that there's a lot of determination in first-generation students that's kind of unmatched. And the University of New Haven has given me such an amazing environment to connect with students and share my story and connect with other people who share my identity and share my struggles and is willing to listen.
Right. So the title of this podcast is 1 in 6,000. Can you tell us what that number means to you?
It's going to sound a little arrogant, but I'm so proud to be the only Sanduni to ever step foot in this university. And it's really awesome because growing up, I actually hated my name. So in Sri Lanka, we would have multiple Sandunis in a classroom. And I went from being just very common and very intergrained in like this community that had the same culture to being someone who was very, very different and being someone who is a minority. And so I grew up after coming to America hating my name. And I would often introduce myself by my middle name, which is funnily enough, Christina. Yeah. And I would tell people, oh yeah, if my name's too hard, you can just call me Christina. I kind of wanted to fit in so bad that I didn't embrace who I was and my identity. So embracing the fact that I'm the one Sanduni in a 6,000 total student population has been a very proud moment of mine.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think that's arrogant at all. I think that's rather unique and definitely something to be proud of.
Thank you.
Any other opportunities you found while at the university that you'd like to talk about?
I would say relating to students' kind of mental health challenges too. So what I've realized is that a lot of students, especially first-generation students, our parents don't necessarily understand mental health as much as we do. When you have all of these expectations on you, you sort of lose sight of what you want to do. And so becoming a diversity peer educator and really connecting with the underrepresented students on our campus really helped me feel grounded at this university and helped me realize that I'm not alone. And no matter what identity you possess, I like to say, this might be cliche, I like to say we're all humans at the end of the day. And bringing a smile to someone's face when they think that they weren't going to smile that day means a lot to me.
For sure. Those are very inspiring words. I think that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And it was nice to get to know you a little bit better. And we wish you all the best luck in your future endeavors after school.
Well, Miss Stuthi, thank you very much.
This podcast is in collaboration with the University of New Haven's Welcome Project. 1 in 6,000